Thanks for bearing with me there. My name is Nathan Handler. I'm a site reliability engineer at Reddit. Unfortunately, my co-presenter, Dan, was unable to be here for some personal reasons, but I'll let him introduce himself anyway.
Hi, I'm Dan OBoyle. I'm an SRE at Reddit, and I'll be joining you pre-recorded today throughout the talk.
How do you approach a 10-foot bear compressed into a 3-foot box?
That, and how it relates to site reliability, is a really good question. Our talk today will focus on a recurring theme throughout the evolution of the SRE team at Reddit, and that theme is be approachable.
So when we talk about early models of SRE, it's a good idea to talk about your first SRE hire. Often your first hire won't be called an SRE. This image here, shared with permission, is an early photo of the operations / sysadmin corner of the Reddit office. The engineer whose desk that is, Jason, is still with Reddit, and he explains that it looks uninviting, but the blanket was mostly to keep out the sun rather than other people. The blanket fort makes for a great location for engineers to congregate. It effectively sets up shop in a way that makes SRE approachable, which is great. But this also adds to our first problem with early SRE. Our first SREs begin to add value, so how do we scale?
So the logical method to scale your single SRE to be able to keep up with the ever-growing company is to hire more and to build up an infra team. So you horizontally scale and you hire as many people as you can. And now that you have multiple people owning these systems, you start to invest in better organizational approaches. And this includes taking the time to write up run books, routing requests to a ticketing system, and hiring a dedicated manager.
How do you get rid of a thing like that? It won't fit in a contractor bag. When it's time, you cut a deer off and mail it back to Nathan. Oh yes, that's what we're gonna do.
So soon the volume of questions, problems, and odd situations like that coming into your team has grown to a point where you are overwhelmed and items are falling through the cracks. Tickets are no longer getting processed in a timely manner, and teams are getting blocked and frustrated. This is typically when folks start naturally looking for shortcuts and accumulating technical debt. So you decide to break out the external tickets from your regular team and project work. You also dedicate someone to staff this new queue each week and to make sure that all of the tickets are being triaged and addressed in a timely manner. Congratulations, you've just created a help desk.
If you're wondering how to move a 100-pound teddy bear, it turns out a fireman carry works best. Alternatively, the ears and neck make for great handholds.
As teams grow and mature, their asks become more complex and specialized, and it becomes challenging to constantly context shift. An infra help desk also starts to feel like it's a bit too late in the process. Teams are coming to you when they need help with the implementation, but they aren't approaching you early on when it's in the planning stages and it's still cheap and easy to make fundamental shifts. So how do you bridge this gap? You embed the SREs onto the product teams so that they can work as partners on these projects and retain the context. But deciding how to allocate your SREs is a challenging problem. One pattern is for business units to give up headcount in exchange for the SRE support. And while this does help ensure teams have some sort of plan for utilizing these valuable SREs, it can sometimes lead to gaps where the teams with the greatest need lack the support because they just don't have the budget. And it's also essential that the business is constantly reevaluating the needs to catch and fill these gaps. Keep in mind, for an SRE team to be effective, you really do need about 4 to 6 members, pretty similar to staffing a healthy on-call rotation. You can't just put them off into isolated scenarios. You might consider starting with a single embedded SRE team to provide an environment to learn, and experiment, and to figure out what works best at your company. And then once you have a working model, you can duplicate it and scale it up to multiple embedded SRE teams.
SREs know how to scale, but scaling an SRE team requires a different set of tools. At an internal team meetup, this image was shared during an unrelated talk. A question was asked, how do we stop park patrons from destroying the field with their own path? One of the SREs on our team said, build a fence, and I remember shouting, pave the dirt road. I love this story because it describes two important SRE tools, sticks and carrots. Every SRE is different. It's valuable to be comfortable with your default mode. Are you a stick or are you a carrot? I'm not saying you should be limited to one or the other, but carrots and sticks collaborating together are unstoppable. Reworded, you can use more sticks if you build social capital with carrots. Let's look at an example. Forcing all engineers to build container images through CI rather than their local workstation. It's not enough to say, here's a great new pattern, please use this. But it's also extremely painful for engineering teams if you suddenly break their current development pattern. Paired together, the stick SRE can outline when and why this behavior will be discouraged and prevented, communicating the upcoming breaking change. The partner carrot focuses on comms around how the build happening in CI is actually faster and also can promote engineer-focused docs.
So how do you go about balancing the needs of these engagements with toil? The engagements have made a real investment in SRE, and like with any investment, they want a return. It can be difficult to separate the application team's engineering assistance requests from SRE reliability work. Keep in mind, just because the team might stop actively developing new features for a service, it doesn't mean that maintenance and reliability work can just stop. It's also not sustainable to place this burden solely on SRE. So how do you track and prioritize the work? Keep in mind, not all tasks fit well into a triage system. You need a path to escalate the larger rocks that arise from triage into project work. You also need to constantly be reviewing this collection of project work that develops to make sure that you don't end up indefinitely putting off the larger but urgent and high-value tasks. And as with all things, taking the time to plan and prioritize is important. If you don't have clear goals, there will always be a mismatch between what SRE accomplishes and what you wish they had done. So you've made it. You've successfully repeated the 4 to 6 person SRE team and cloned it into several copies of itself. But now new problems arise. How do you ensure the SRE teams have a consistent standard of care? And where do SREs sit in the reporting chain? In our experience, SRE is part of the engineering organization, but a separate reporting chain is ultimately the key bit here. And as with the bear, you might need to move it around a few times before you find the right location for you. A common approach is to look at the relationship between the business units and to cluster based on that. But there will always be more business units than SRE teams. So sometimes you'll cluster into logical components that share goals. So perhaps you cluster based on teams supporting the web platform or mobile, machine learning. These are all approaches, but you'll have to find the approach that fits your needs. And also remember, SREs, while they're there to support some of these teams, they still need to do common SRE tasks. Tools, reduction of toil through automation is a common SRE task that needs to be done. Observability, measuring systems is often required as a key part of reliability. And incident management. From managing incidents to driving postmortems, SRE is often a key participant there. And throughout all of this, remember, maintain a single consistent message. Be approachable. You should be able to explain in 1 to 2 sentences how any engineer in the company can involve SRE.
Daddy.
Did you find it?
Mama, look at the size.
Yes.
That is the thing I
And at this point, you've successfully gone from a sole infra person to a well-sized SRE organization with numerous SRE engagements. You've also ensured that while the SRE org is large, like the bear, it's approachable. This low barrier to entry means that teams will involve SRE early and often and receive high value in return. This is a highly successful SRE model. And that is how to approach a 10-foot bear in a 3-foot box, or at least the 15-minute version, otherwise called the evolution of SRE at a large company. I realize we're a bit over time or behind schedule here, so if you have questions, I'm happy to take them in the hall. Otherwise, Twitter, email address, feel free to reach out. But thank you.